Okay. Hey, Beth. Hi, everyone. I'm right now with Beth Stelzer, who is the founder of Save Women's Sports. And I thank you so much for being here to talk with us and tell us about your organization and tell us about your stance on this new EO that's come down from
Oof.
Biden. And let's just talk about everything.
Yeah, as a Minnesotan, I say oof da. Yeah. So first off, I'm the founder of the nonpartisan grassroots coalition, Save Women's Sports. And it's what started as a website and we've turned into a coalition from pro and amateur athletes to coaches to medical professionals, all standing up and using our voices together to call to courage to hopefully get other people to stand up. Because as you know, the cancel culture can be brutal. And so I have lots of young women and athletes that cannot speak up because they're actually threatened with things like their sponsorships getting taken away if they speak up about this. So I'm lucky that I am a mom and a housewife, and I'm just an amateur power lifter who happened to enter a competition where a male wanted to compete in the female championships. And we're like, oh no. Luckily, USA Powerlifting said, that's not fair. It's just like the same as doping, and we're a strict drug tested federation. It's kind of the same. And so, luckily, my rights were protected as an athlete, and I came into sports later in life. I can't imagine what these young girls are feeling, and it shouldn't be on their shoulders to speak up. So I'm here today as a call to action. And in this gender critical kind of fight of this transgender ideology is going to be grassroots. We need to have those tough conversations like we're having today. Talk to your neighbor, your even family members, and then branch out to the coaches, athletic associations. Your voice matters, and I'm truly proof of that. In just a couple of years, I've gone from just being in my basement sending some emails to going all across the country helping laws getting passed now. Because with Biden's EO, it basically, as we know, replaced sex with gender identity. And so it just erased the definition of what a female is. So we're lucky in the United States that state laws can still be different than federal laws. Although federal laws trump them, they aren't always enforced. So at least the states can enforce their own rules, hopefully for the meantime. And that's where I am.
Yay. I've noted that we've seen a lot, especially from the Connecticut, the three Connecticut girls who have really just them and their moms and their lawyers, and I know you have been so successful in fighting this, and I've noticed other teens as well who are pushing back, and their families are helping them push back. I'm curious, why do you think we're not seeing more adult women and professional female athletes pushing back on this?
It's a good question. I think we see some women, such as like the professional athletes like Martina Navratilova, kind of settling on this middle ground with like testosterone limits and whatnot. And this is not right. Like, no,
Yeah.
no males in female sports. And other athletes that have a spot that they can possibly speak out are just afraid because, like I said, they lose sponsorships and endorsements, and they're kind of banking on this, and they can't get kicked out of their federations. And for example, I have a friend who did cycling, and she's a professional athlete, but they still pay for all of their equipment. They don't win much money if they win a race. It's really a thing of passion for them. They were told that their whole team would lose a sponsorship if she didn't shut up, basically. And so you're
Oh my
talking,
gosh.
moms just like me that, $50,000 or more of equipment that their team would lose if she didn't shut up. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So I think that's why we're not seeing a lot more adults, because we have careers, we have real lives. And as you know, it's not just coming at you for this bit. They will cut at your throat and try to take your whole life away from you. And it's often an empty threat, but a lot of us do have those things we're banking on. And with COVID and whatnot, it's even more scarier to have that threat of possibly losing your livelihood. So
Yeah.
It's tough,
You
but
know,
yeah, like you said, we do have more younger athletes. We're seeing some college girls from Idaho, and I was
yeah.
participating in a testimony in Utah yesterday, and some younger
Yeah.
women testified there. So it's just an empowerment thing, I think.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm so inspired by their courage and their willingness. I just think it's amazing to be that young and to, face these accusations of bigotry or to face accusations of hatefulness
Yeah.
when they're simply trying to defend their right to fairness and safety. And
And they have to watch these male athletes take their Women of the Week award and get championed as being brave and courageous. Those girls in
yeah,
Connecticut and Idaho are the ones that are brave and courageous.
they really are.
Isn't it
And
maddening to see that?
it's so maddening, and it's really maddening to see NGOs, for example, like the ACLU. And I've noted that the language that they use, is that these boys who identify as trans just want to compete, but that's very disingenuous because no one is being banned from competition in their sex category, and there's no reason
Exactly.
why these non-conforming boys can't compete in their sex category.
If it was just about just competing, then JC Cooper, the USA powerlifter from Minnesota here, that's threatening actually filed a lawsuit against USA powerlifting. This is the male that wanted to enter into the female contest. They actually have records in a different federation. They are the women's champion. But this is not good enough for JC. JC wants to compete with more people. JC doesn't want to be othered. Them. What about us? I'm here to say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, and I would think, one of the things that I've been wondering about is, so many female athletes are themselves gender nonconforming, so in a way, how are they even the same quote gender as a man who is choosing to say he's trans status? They're actually not the same gender as gender nonconforming women. So even if we were segregating sports by identity category, which I think is senseless, they're actually not
It's
the
still
same
not this.
identity.
Yeah, it's absurd that we even need to be fighting this battle, in my opinion. In the sports arena in the United States, we have had Title IX. It was enacted in 1972, so that's 50 years. But keep in mind, it took many years for that to be enforced. So even when
Yeah.
I was a kid in the 90s, we were still getting those equal opportunities, and we're talking about handing them over on a platter back to males. I just don't understand.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. Well, tell me about some ways, if there are athletes watching, women or men, people with daughters or participants, what are some ways that they can support Save Women's Sports?
Certainly.
What are some ways that people can get involved? Because I know for myself, I've observed women are hungry to get involved, and they really don't know quite where and how to get involved.
First start is those tough conversations, like I said, at the grassroots level. And then you have to find your local legislators and let them know how you feel about this. If you happen to live in one of the states with legislations in there, you can email us to get some help. If you want support in contacting, or else feel free to contact your legislators. The bill sponsor, is an important one to contact in any of these states. We've done things with Save Women's Sports, like send petitions to the NCAA, to the Olympics. We're always working on new projects. So if you are an athlete or someone that wants to step up, you can visit savewomenssports.com. You can email us at info@savewomenssports.com, and we'll get you started. We're ready. We're rearing up. I'm so excited that, I live in this little small town in Minnesota, and now I'm helping lead this international effort, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean it's been I've sort of seen you guys blow up over Twitter, and I just see you having more and more opportunities to speak this into the public. And I'm not sure about you, but I would say the more I see women speaking out about this, the greater responses I see. I see other
Certainly.
women having courage to speak out and say things.
And thankfully to women like you with podcasts like this, so we can speak out, because it's absurd how we kind of get blacklisted by the media. And, I'm kind of a middle ground person, but for me to only be able to be on like Fox News in mainstream media to express my opinion just seems weird.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Thank God for Fox giving us opportunities. I think, unfortunately, I have heard sometimes people criticize us for taking platforms with the right, but the
Take
left
what we
is
can
not giving
get.
us any
They didn't give us a
platforms.
seat at the table. No, I'd gladly take a seat at the table, but we're not offered. And so for any of those organizations out there, call me, email me. Let's get
Yeah,
together. Let's
yeah,
have a talk. Let's be civil. Civility is what this conversation is often missing. It's common sense. It shouldn't
yeah.
be a partisan issue or religious issue. It's common sense.
Yeah, and I was wondering because of my background is being a radical feminist, and I think there's certain there's a lot of women who have been involved in this conversation for years, but I'm wondering, what is your experience with men being involved with Save Women's Sports? Because I feel like sports is just such a just hits our heartstrings as Americans, and sportsmanship and the idea of fairness. And do you see a lot of fathers and husbands and brothers and dads coming to
What
support
the
you?
issue is right now is that most males in America, I think this is a joke. Like, or that the few athletes that entered in were like playing a prank or a joke. So as people get more educated, we are seeing a strong response from men and young
Right.
boys even that want to help young girls, young boys saying that, hey, we'll clear out the bathroom, our bathroom for you if you're afraid to go to your bathroom now. And I
So
think that's a
great.
part of what we need to look at with sports as well. It's not just contact on a playing field. You're sharing lockers, you're sharing hotel accommodations outside of sports. And we need to face it that a lot of young women have been sexually assaulted. A lot of them are very afraid to tell anyone. And so for them to
Yeah.
face a male body in the locker room, regardless of how they identify, is very terrifying. So to have this ideology, these males being listened to, what about us? Aren't we a way larger
Yeah.
population? And what about our safety risks and
Yeah.
whatnot? So, yeah. And then beyond that, the realities of pregnancy, menstruation, and menopause that we have to train around. And they know they'll never face those realities. And those are real reasons why we need this sex segregation, not gender identity.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I have, just in my conversations on Twitter and with people who are coming from the opposite side, I really tend to ask that question: on what basis should we have segregation according to identity status? Especially now when there's just hundreds of recognized identity statuses, and there's maverick and nutrigender and agender and non-binary, and
Maverick,
there's
that's a new
hundreds of
one. It's every day
there's like demi
another
boys,
letter to the soup.
there's hundreds of identity categories. So what is the basis for segregation by identity category, when everyone of every claimed identity is one of two sexes? Eh,
Exactly. And that's a very good point to bring up, the whole XXXY thing, because I think the gender identity, transgender, transsexual, disorder of sexual development, intersex, it's all getting conflated. And we need to remember that even if you have a disorder of sexual development or are intersex, you're still a variant of XX or
Yeah.
XY. It is still either a male or female disorder of sexual development.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
get how they
it's
call
real.
this pseudoscience.
No, yeah, everyone is male or female. There's no third or other sex. You know, I think it's unfortunately it's very dehumanizing to those who do have DSD
Yes,
conditions, when people try to act as if they are a third or other sex, when you know those conditions are actually sex specific conditions, and you know, and you know people with DSD conditions deserve, I guess, fairness in however their physical conditions are presenting. But really, that is unrelated to this identity stuff. I mean,
it
people with
very
DSDs are
is.
having a physical condition. It has nothing to do with, you know, a boy who is saying that he's gender dysphoric. You know, those two things are really unrelated.
They
And
are
I think that,
totally unrelated, but in a way, we have people like Castor Semenya, who has a male disorder of sexual development, happens
yeah,
to identify as female, but that's a male body, should be
yes,
restricted from female sports. It's tough. It
yes.
is totally separate and should not be conflated, but it is a connected branch on the tree, and it all comes down to the root of this ideology. I don't know
Yeah.
what else to call it. This It's almost like a cult some days with how they attack and treat each other and us.
Yeah. Yeah, I have noted that it does have some cult-like qualities. If you are you can't be a simple
I went
non-believer.
there.
Yeah, you know, not non-believers are unfortunately really vilified, but those of us who are non-believers, we're, you know, we're simply believers in biology. I mean, there is one way to arrive on this planet, and it is by sexual reproduction between a male and a female. You know, every single human on this planet is either male or female, and you know, as you know, being a power lifter, I mean, bodies matter. I mean, there are vast physiological differences down to the male skeletal structure. I mean, it's not as I'm sure you could observe, it's not just about testosterone levels. There are vast
Very much
physiological
so.
advantages
Very
that
much so.
come with being born male.
And you'll never
And
mitigate those advantages, even if you
yeah.
suppress your testosterone, whatnot, whatnot. One that I always like to fall back on is when you have your Y chromosome, it programs your muscles a little bit differently. So you have some extra muscle cells, kind of, than women do,
Wow.
and they can grow faster, stronger, and recover easier, regardless of your testosterone level. They're just programmed that way because you have that Y chromosome. So there's just so much behind it that this just does not make sense. The testosterone, it's all just conflating and muddying the water. It's clear,
Yeah.
it's common sense. Male,
Yeah.
female, let's be honest. Let's not take away women's rights. Let's not march backwards. Let's march forwards.
Yeah. Yeah, let's march forwards. Yeah, I like, I think I read somewhere on your website, you know, it doesn't, you know, we have a lot of experts who are reporting on this and who are speaking up on behalf of women, but in fact, it doesn't even take an expert. It all it takes is having eyes and scanning a public crowd to see that men are, you know, on average bigger, fitter, you know, with
Or even as a
physiological
child on the
advantages.
school ground, you can see
Yeah,
that those
yeah,
boys can do pull-ups and it's terribly hard for
yeah.
you, etc., etc. There's the physical fitness tests for kids at 6 years old. It's different for boys
Yeah.
versus girls. We shouldn't be forcing kids to choose to be on puberty blockers or transition to be into sports either. We shouldn't say like, oh, it's okay if they transition pre-puberty to be in female sport. No, because that's possibly forcing a kid to do something he doesn't want to do just because they want to play a sport. There is a place
Yeah.
for them. We're not banning them from anything.
No. You know, and one of the things that I also think about sometimes is, this is really all about men and boys transgressing women and girls sports, because we never hear about those female athletes who are choosing trans status trying to compete with men.
It's very
And of
rare
course we
because
don't
even when they're
they can't.
doping with testosterone, they cannot make up that performance gap. They can try and try and try, and you may have those few, but it just does not work. Somebody was telling me like a few years ago, there was like 11,000 boys that competed in the baseball Little League World Series, and which is open to boys and girls. 11,000 something boys competed, 19 girls. So it
Wow.
starts young. We just can't compete. We're different. And that should be celebrated. It should be
Yeah,
celebrated that we're
yeah,
different. And the game is
yeah.
different for us. If you watch a basketball game or any kind of game where male and female play, it might be a slower game, but it's a more finessed game. It's different to watch women play. And I know a lot of people out there don't want to watch a male and female sports. We're having a
Yeah.
tough time getting crowds the way they are. We don't need to tear apart women's sports that way.
Yeah, well, I think, decent feeling people, it offends our sense of sportsmanship and fair play, And as you said, it's it is about the sportsmanship, and it is about the scholarships and the opportunities and the chance to podium, and but it is also about that locker room and privacy, privacy around our female bodies and our
I was a
menstruation
victim
and
of sexual
our
assault when I was younger and domestic abuse when I was older. And powerlifting empowered me through PTSD from the stalking and stuff from
oh
it. So I can attest to how these young girls must feel. And that fear is real. Why does that fear not matter? Why are we always hearing about these transgender suicide rates? Ask
yeah.
the young girls how they're feeling nowadays. Everybody's not
Yeah.
feeling too great, and we cannot risk a whole population for these few.
Yeah, no,
Why are we
yeah.
handing up our rights right away too? Why aren't they having to come up with true science that says it's fair? Why are we making up the
Yeah.
science as we go and destroying women's sports along the way?
Yeah, women should not be made to be, human shields for boys who are non-conforming. It isn't right. And their feelings are being put above our physical safety, our bodily integrity, our boundaries, our sense of fair play. Yeah, it is absolutely just angering and
Or, for
upsetting. And
example, maybe the coach is transgender and you don't know that, and they're coaching your daughter's team. They're seeing them change. They're seeing them. Are you okay with that, a male? Because technically, we all know this in self reported studies, most of them are intact males. So I'm not saying that transgender individuals are a threat. Let's make that clear. But this opens up girls to be conditioned to being okay with male bodies in their locker rooms. And if we
yeah,
replace sex with gender identity, it lets any male identify as a female. So,
yeah,
how do we teach
yeah,
young girls to be safe? Who do they look out
yeah.
for?
Yeah, and how can we guarantee that everyone is, quote unquote in earnest?
Truly,
how can we guarantee that these
truly.
these men and boys who want to compete against women and girls are in earnest? What is the difference between someone who is genuine and a bad actor, and how can we tell? Because there is no biological
And they've even
determinant for
stepped it up
these.
another notch because they can change their birth certificate. They can change their
Yeah,
driver's license. So there is
yeah,
no way because they can say, well, I'm a female, my driver's license says so. Well, just because we need to keep these
yeah,
terms scientific as what they are. It's just crazy. So, like, for example, somebody like USA Powerlifting who's made these rules, how do we enforce it? If someone shows up, they look like a very feminine body, female birth certificate so they can buy their membership as a female. We're far from having all the answers here. We're going to have to come up with some kind of sex ID for sports or something or another if we can't just be all clear that we are what we are when we're born.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's really sad to witness so many medical professionals go along with something that is so anti-science. It's
But I
just,
think
I
as
mean,
as we're all learning, it's really a lot about the money. And can we give a plug right here? Would be a good time to the 11th hour blog, Jennifer Mila.
yeah, yeah,
Please
yeah,
head over
yeah. Thank.
there and check out the money trail, because it's easy to see how all these industries are tied together using this ideology to kind of control us into things. And there's a lot of money getting pushed to push this onto us. So I'm really proud with my little organization, how much we have gotten done. And I'm just, that's that proof in the American dream that you can do what you want to do and succeed. You just got to work hard enough. And so it's just a grind. Just work hard and answer those emails, make those phone calls, and we can really make a change.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beth. Yeah, yeah, Jennifer Bialik's work is phenomenal at the 11th Hour blog, and your work is phenomenal as well. I'm so impressed by what you are doing with Save Women's Sports and how much you have accomplished. And I think it's just so inspiring. It really inspires other women to get involved. And those of us who were athletic in high school, or as you said, even finding sports later in life. I mean, we need this, and thank you for creating this outlet for women, and helping give other women a voice and showing what can be accomplished. Because, I'm sure that I'm with you. I'm not going to stop fighting. I am not going to stop fighting for our
We
rights.
won't back down and we won't compromise. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
Yay! Thanks for being with me. I really appreciate it.